This village marks the beginning of the world's petroleum industry. That's a notable moment in human civilization, I would say. But as quickly as the world's first oil boom began, it dried up and sent drillers and prospectors searching for their fortunes somewhere else. This village is home to about 650 people, but a century and a half ago, it was a thriving oil town of about 3,000. The boom is long over, but oil still flows here, and it's still pumped using 19th century technology. And you can visit this place and explore what's left of the oil boom industry and the communities that sprang up as a result. Some towns boomed. Oil Springs went bust. The area is very quiet. Surrounded by farmland, the only sounds are chirping birds, an occasional vehicle, and the relentless squeaking of the small pump jacks that have been removing crude oil from the ground for 160 years. The overgrown land and the vine-covered industrial equipment are all signs of a forgotten place. At one time, this area would have been buzzing with prospectors and businessmen, new arrivals in search of their fortunes, broken men who'd lost everything, and oil drillers striking liquid gold with gushers as high as the treetops. But how did all of this get started? People had known about the oil for as long as humans have been on the land. The first were the indigenous people, who, for centuries before Europeans arrived, used it to waterproof canoes and for medicinal purposes. In fact, when the first oilmen began digging wells in the area, they came across ancient indigenous wells. In 1849, men from the Geologic Survey of Canada explored the area and determined that the gum beds could be used for paving roads and sealing ship hulls. Gum beds are kind of like this sticky, hard oil that bubbles to the surface. You can still find patches of it if you know what to look for. What they didn't realize, however, is this discovery would result in the world's first oil boom. It's honestly a little hard to wrap your head around the idea that the petroleum industry began in this little village of 600 people. And today it's just these quiet little gravel roads, and it's pretty crazy. It really is. Like the global scale of it today is just pretty unbelievable. To think it all started here it's kind of mind-blowing. The first characters in this story were the Tripp brothers. When they arrived, they bought 1,350 acres of the gum swamps around Black Creek, and they started making asphalt. New York chemists analyzed their product and determined it to be a very valuable form of bitumen, and so the Tripp brothers started the first registered petroleum company in the world. But there were no roads at the time, and the brothers, they struggled to get their product through the rough landscape, which was all muddy and boggy, and they couldn't get enough of their asphalt out to the market to make the business viable. But they weren't the last to try. James Miller Williams, who was already a successful entrepreneur in other industries, bought most of the Tripp brothers' property. He decided to dig deep into the soil instead of just extracting the gum beds at the surface. In, I guess, a stroke of good luck, they hit liquid oil, and the well began producing 40 to 60 barrels a day. Williams built an oil still and began boiling the crude. The vapor produced from the boiling would drip out as kerosene, which was a much safer and brighter fuel than the current animal products that were being used. With more good luck, the timing of his discovery was perfect, as there was a huge demand for indoor lighting. And the kerosene, being a much safer product, was a perfect fit. Plus, the Great Western Railway opened a new station at Wyoming, where Williams could get his product out into the market. So I have no idea if this was the location of the railway at the time, but I thought this would just make a good visual reference. Plus, it's gotta be one of the smallest via rail stations in Canada. By 1860, word got out about the oil, and dozens of men began arriving every day in search of their fortune. The men would have to walk from Wyoming. Apparently the locals knew who the new guys were because they all complained about the nasty smell. smell of the oil is so strong it actually hurts your throat. Makes my eyes burn a little bit too. I can't believe how strong the smell is. Men began building shacks and setting up camps. Many were American speculators, and the price of land began to rise. The forests were cut down and replaced with 3-pole derricks. Holes were being dug everywhere, and huge quantities of oil were being pulled out daily. Other supporting industries grew too, like barrel coopers and blacksmiths. Thousands and thousands of gallons of oil were being pumped out and barreled, creating massive pyramids of oil. Some was even floated down Black Creek to the St. Clair River, while the rest was shipped on carts to the trains at Wyoming. Many of these prospectors and drillers got rich. It's said that some would be broke in the morning, hit an oil vein during the day, and be rich by the evening. But they wanted more, and soon these oil men would drill into the bedrock. One such man was Hugh Nixon Shaw, who drilled into the rock for months and months. He was completely broke, having not hit anything since purchasing his 1-acre lot. He even kind of became the laughingstock of the community. People thought he was crazy for continuing on. That was until he struck liquid gold. The oil shot 20 feet out of the ground and didn't stop for days. Over 2,000 barrels a day were being produced from his single well. For comparison, right now, about 65 barrels per day are being produced from 300 wells. It's said that for 40 or 50 acres around the well, the ground was saturated with crude oil. It even got into the creek and flowed out to the St. Clair River. Over 30 gushers erupted that same year, but they had no way to control it, and tens of thousands of barrels of oil were wasted. These men were so eager to dig and get rich, but had no idea what to do if they actually struck oil. But men kept showing up, and more oil was struck during these frenzied years. In a matter of months, more than 1,000 wells were constructed, producing about 12,000 barrels per day. But the work was super dangerous. Shaw, the guy who hit the first gusher, he died shortly after from the poisonous fumes of his own well. And occasionally, Black Creek, which was full of oil, would catch on fire, and there would just be a river of fire. Another driller who made a name for himself was John Henry Fairbank. He bought a well and quickly became one of the biggest producers of oil. A key to his success was that he figured out how to power 90 wells with one steam engine. Today, Fairbank Oil Field is, I think, the only oil company left. During the oil boom, the town of Oil Springs became one of the largest communities in the area. The streets were paved with wood planks and lined with shops, churches, and inns. The streets were bustling with carriages and horse-drawn streetcars. At its peak, the town was home to about 3,000 people. But as quickly as the oil began to flow, it dried up just as fast. People began to leave Oil Springs in droves, in search of new oil opportunities. Some went around the world with their new oil drilling experience and technology, and they helped pave the way for the global petroleum industry. Petrolia to the north had new wells popping up, and many went there in search of their fortune. As it turned out, Petrolia had more oil, which sustained the industry and community for 40 years, making it one of the wealthiest towns in Canada. Thanks to the oil boom, the town saw a huge influx of oilmen, and the town grew from a few hundred to thousands. Petrolia is a beautiful Victorian-era town, and the downtown has restaurants, shops, and many historic manors and buildings that once belonged to the oil executives during the boom years. There's some great historic architecture here too, like Victoria Hall, which was built in 1889 as the town hall, and built to reflect the town's wealth and prosperity. And the amazing Grand Trunk Railway Station, which today serves as the town's library. Built in 1903, incredibly, the train station is virtually unchanged from its original look. The station was actually a terminal because the rail line into town, which connected to the main Grand Trunk line, came to a dead end at the back of the station, where the town's farmers market is today. The more time I spend traveling and exploring Ontario, the more interested in the history I get. Not because I'm a history buff, but because learning the stories of these landscapes and communities makes the travel experience so much more rewarding and interesting. You could easily drive right through Oil Springs, Wyoming, or Petroleum and not think twice about how or why these places exist. What I've learned after making many of these videos about towns and neighborhoods is that you could throw a dart at a map, and whatever point it hits, there's probably an interesting story to uncover. I've received lots of great suggestions for places to explore in Ontario, and believe me, I'm making note of them. So if you have a place that people should check out, please leave it in the comments below. I'm Mark, and I make videos about places and experiences here in Canada. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. See ya.